wise. And then next week we'll come back thematically. We're going to come back next week and try to look at the entire Bible as a story. Use Brother George Fall's idea of the eternal struggle. Again, very, very overviewish, 10,000 foot level, however you want to say it, because we're going to try to do it in 30 minutes. So here's the plan. I'm going to put the entire Old Testament up here. And then after we get an overview of the entire Old Testament, if I don't have 39 books, we're in trouble. If I've got 39 books, I'm going to erase the board, and then we'll come back and we'll do the New Testament. We're going to do it by periods and major events, which books cover these periods, these major events, and some key characters that we're going to find in each one. So the very first period of history that we find in the Old Testament, is it time to start? Are we okay? Okay, good. Very first period of history. So the first period of history we're going to call the period of the fathers. They used to always call it the patriarchal period, but I got tired of explaining what a patriarch is to people, and so just decided to call it the period of the fathers, because that's what a patriarch is. Why do we call this the period of the fathers? Called the period of the fathers because before you had a priesthood, it would be the father of the family who would be offering the sacrifices. He was kind of the go-between between the whole clan and God, represented God to the people. Okay, that's insightful. That helps us with this first period. Okay, first period covers the most years, because the key events under the period of the fathers would be creation, fall. What do I mean when I say fall? What does the fall mean? Sin entering into the world, and because of that, eventually things get so bad, we have the flood, and then the fourth thing that I want to put up here, again, just very high level, creation, sin enters the world, things get so bad, flood. After the flood, we have the languages, everything else, people disperse, and then we have focus. Oh, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to focus on a family. On one family. Who is that family? Abraham. And so Abraham, the chosen child, is Isaac. Isaac has a couple boys, Jacob, Esau. Which one are we going to focus between Jacob and Esau? We're going to change Jacob's name. What is his name going to be? Israel. So here I'm going to put Adam and Eve. As far as major characters that we're going to find during this period, we'll have Adam and Eve with the flood. We're going to have who? Noah. And then we're going to come down to Abraham, key figure. And then we're going to skip to his grandson, Israel. What does Israel mean?
Struggles with God.
That's exactly right. And so his 12 sons are going to be the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Now, those are the major characters under this period, which when we get down to his 12 sons, there was one son that was picked on by all the other sons. And his name wasn't Chris. But what was his name? What was the name of the son that was picked on? Joseph. Joseph leads us to the next major period. The next major period would be bondage. The period of bondage. How long did the period of bondage last? Many times the Bible refers to it as 400 years of bondage. Right? 400 years of bondage. Yeah, I haven't put books up here yet. I'm going to do that in just a minute. We got 400 years of bondage. Where is this bondage? It's in Egypt. Major characters here going in would be Joseph. But getting you out of bondage would be who? Moses. He's going to be, again, just major characters here. Now, books right here in the middle. In fact, I need to put a line right here so I don't lose track of my books. Okay? What book are we going to read about the period of the fathers?
Genesis.
It's going to be Genesis. But there's another key book that we put under the period of the fathers. Also tells us a lot about creation. We have a creation account there. But what is Job? Job. Yeah, the book of Job. Job. Yeah, very important. Okay. Read about the bondage period in which book? Exodus. Book of Exodus. And you can read everything I've written up there so far, right? Pretty good. Okay. Period of bondage. We're going to get out of bondage. And what happens when we get out of bondage? Well, how do they get out of bondage? What does God do to get them out of bondage? Yeah. We're going to have 10 plagues going through the Red Sea. When they go through the Red Sea, they're supposed to be going to Promised Land, but they don't make it to the Promised Land. There's one major stop along the way, and after this major stop on the way to the Promised Land, instead of going to the Promised Land, they're delayed. Why are they delayed? Because they didn't believe. Okay, this is going to be the period in the wilderness, or you can call it the period of wandering. And so leading up to this, the bondage into the wilderness, we're going to talk about getting out of Egypt, which would be 10 plagues, Red Sea, crossing of the Red Sea, and then the really big one here is what happens at Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai. What happens at Mount Sinai?
The law.
Giving of 613 what? Yeah, we usually focus on 10 major ones, but 613 laws revealed to God's people. Okay, if you want to read about the wilderness period, which book do you turn to in the Old Testament? Wandering around the wilderness is the book of Numbers. Numbers. If you want to read about the law being given on Mount Sinai, there are really three books. But what are the major books? If you want to get the law, that's going to be what? Leviticus. But if we want to repeat it, because everybody died off, and everybody died off in the wilderness, 20 years above the age of 20, a whole new generation comes along. That's why we call it the book of Numbers. You count everybody at the beginning, but then everybody dies off. All the adults die off. You have to count them again at the end. And then you have to repeat the law to these people. So Deuteronomy, second time, we'll give them the law, right? Okay. Part of this wilderness experience and what happens here, you're also going to find it at the end of the book of Exodus. And so there's one other major thing, event-wise, that I want to go with the book of Exodus, because it's almost a third of the entire book, and that is the tent. What is the tent? Tent of meeting, the tabernacle. Extremely important to put with the book of Exodus here. So, after the wilderness experience, who are the major characters here? Yeah, I'm just going to stick with Moses again, because can't go into too much detail here. He's major character as far as the wilderness experience goes. Now, at the end of the wilderness, they finally get to go into the Promised Land. So, problem is, some other people are living in the Promised Land. So how are you going to take the Promised Land if other people are living there? Got to have a period of conquest. The period of conquest. Who's your key character as far as period of conquest is concerned? Joshua. Okay, this is a really hard one. Which book do you turn to read about? Thank you. Okay, Joshua, a period of conquest, taking the Promised Land. Let's move on. After that, who rules over the people?
The
Judges. Okay, these are kind of easy, but I'm glad you're tracking with me. Where do we read about the judges? Judges. If you are taking notes, I hope you are, maybe, what I would like you to do as far as key events in the period of Judges, I just want you to draw a circle. In fact, you can keep drawing this circle. And the circle goes like this. It starts with sin. Sin leads to what? Slave. Slavery leads to what? I'm really sorry. When you're really sorry and you cry out to God, what does God do? Sends a Savior in the form of a judge. You go through this cycle, what, 7 times in the book of Judges? Just over and over and over again. Who are the major characters? I'm not going to list all the judges because there are 2 that the book of Judges spends the most time on. The first one it spends most time on is associated with the number 300. Who would that be? What's the number 300 significant with Gideon?
300 men.
300 men, because he started with 32,000, and God said, if you win with 32,000, you're going to think you won because you had 32,000 men. I want you to know that you're only going to win because God's on your side. Okay, the second half of the book of Judges, the major character, another sterling example of great characters, guy named who? Samson. Great example of God using anybody, right? He can use people like you and me, people like Gideon and Samson. Okay, that'd be the period of Judges until the last judge, who's not so much dealt with during the book of Judges, but nonetheless the last major judge before they have a king. What's his name? Samuel, that's exactly right. Which leads us to the next period when they want kings. So we're going to start with United Kingdom, which begs what's coming next, right? You have a United Kingdom. Who are the first three kings? Because the country is one under these first three kings. Who are these first three kings?
Saul.
Okay, Saul's the first one. David. And then Solomon. Okay, if you want to read about the United Kingdom, the ministry of Samuel on into the United Kingdom, part of 1 Samuel, last part of 1 Samuel, and mainly 2 Samuel, you're going to find Saul and David in 1 and 2 Samuel. Then you're going to get into 1 Kings for Solomon's reign. Now, there are a lot of other books that Solomon writes in particular, and we're going to come back and put them on at the end. But this is the history that we've got so far. So we're up to starting 2 Kings, but the problem is Solomon's son, a guy named Rehoboam, didn't follow good advice, and he got a lot of people upset, so the kingdom split. And so instead of having a united kingdom, divided kingdom. Divided kingdom, major event, you have 10 verses 2. 10 tribes go to the north, and what do we call the northern kingdom? Israel. What do we call the southern kingdom? That's exactly right. Okay, if you want to read about that, that's mainly in 2 Kings. You also, a lot of this is found in 1 and 2 Chronicles. 1 and 2 Chronicles. Can't list all the kings here. If I did, the major thing I'd say is there are some good kings in Judah, almost no good kings in Israel. And because of that, Israel's going to end first, and we're going to be left with just one kingdom. But I do want to put a couple of key names here, because there are 3 major prophets. There's a lot of prophets, but there's 3 that are just really, really big. Who's the one who's fed by ravens? Elijah, that's exactly right. Who was Elijah's servant who took over after him? Elisha. Who was the prophet who prayed with King Hezekiah when they were attacked by the Assyrians? Isaiah. Another major prophet during this period of time. So we're going to go ahead and put his book up here, because a lot of that is during the divided kingdom, and there are some other prophetic books we can come back and add in just a little bit. After the period of divided kingdom, you've got one left. We're going to call that the remnant kingdom. Only one left, and that would be the southern kingdom of Judah is left, but they didn't learn the lesson that they should have from their sister nation in Israel. So God sends a prophet that we know as the weeping prophet. Try to beg the people to turn back to God. What's the guy's name?
Jeremiah.
Thank you. So key name here, Jeremiah. Jeremiah also wrote another book of laments, where he's just in anguish over the fact that destruction of Jerusalem finally came. What's the name of that book? Lamentations. That's exactly right. That's during the period of the remnant kingdom. The message was, if they don't turn back to God, the city's going to be destroyed, the temple's going to be destroyed, and they're going to be carried away where? To exile. period of exile. Where is this exile?
Babylon.
In Babylon. So there they are in Babylon. Who does God... There are three major prophets here. Jeremiah is going to be the one at the end of the remnant kingdom. He's also going to be talking to the people at the beginning of the exile. But there are two other prophets that are going to spend most of their time actually in Babylon. What are those two prophets' names? Daniel
Ezekiel.
and Ezekiel. That's exactly right. How long does this period last?
72 years.
70 years. 70-year period in exile in Babylon. Okay. Finally, at the end of that, Isaiah tells us, he even names the guy who's going to be the next world leader, a guy named Cyrus, Persian leader, who's going to send them back home after the 70 years, right? So this is the post-exile. And don't worry, that is the last period of the Old Testament, right? So we got a 400-year break after this. This post-exile, they come back. What do? They rebuild. They rebuild what? City? Temple?
And the wall.
And the walls. Thank you. Very important. You didn't have any protection. It was major defense in ancient world. You had to have walls. Who was the guy who helped them rebuild the walls? That'd be Nehemiah. What was his official title?
Governor.
Okay, he was governor. He's also a cupbearer. But he was appointed governor over this region. What was the name of the priest who helped him rebuild the city? Ezra. Okay, and then there was a queen. Her event took place during this time, although it didn't cover the history. She was a Persian queen. What was her name?
Esther.
Esther. Okay, Esther. Which makes me think of another lady's story who's being told back during the period of Judges. What lady's story was told during the period of Judges? Ruth. Okay, we have books of poetry in the Old Testament. There are 5 of them. We already talked about one of them. That would be Job. It's probably one of the oldest books in the Bible, right? The other 4 books of poetry, first one is a bunch of songs. Who wrote that? What's the name of that book? Psalms, that's right. And who wrote most of the Psalms? David. So we're going to put that right here, Psalms. There were also wise sayings recorded for us. What do we call that book?
Proverbs.
Who wrote most Proverbs?
Solomon.
Solomon. So we're going to put it during this time. And I've got to go below the line to do this. So we've got Proverbs. What other wisdom writing did he write?
Songs of Solomon.
Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon. I've got to circle these to make sure I include them in the line. Now, the only other thing that we've left off here are 12 minor prophets. The only reason we refer to them as minor prophets is their books are shorter. Okay? Who are these minor prophets? Most of them we're going to put during the divided kingdom. Latter part of the United Kingdom on into the divided kingdom, except 3. There are 3 that come at the very, very end. So let's start with those first since we're not going in order. Anyway, we're the last 3 prophets to speak to God's people. Same time, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, same period of history. We've got 3 prophets. What are their names? Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Malachi, that's exactly right. Okay, so we have 9 left. The 9 that are left, we're going to put right in here. Are you ready for this? Here we go. Who was the one married to a prostitute? Hosea. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah. Obad. Jonah. Who did Jonah go to?
Nineveh.
What other prophet was sent to Nineveh? Nahum. So Joel, Amos, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk. I always have to start to say it again. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Okay, you ready? Let's see if we got 39. Did you catch anyone I missed yet?
No.
We're going to go in reverse order. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39! Okay, we've got a 1-minute break while I erase the board, and we're ready for the New Testament. Any other major book we missed? I don't think so. What gap is there between... This is not coming real clean here, is it? Okay, between the Old Testament and New Testament, we've got 400 years, but there are some major things that happen between the Old Testament and New Testament, such as where they go to worship, where they meet, as far as
Synagogue.
getting together. We have synagogues. Synagogues come about in between, called the intertestamental period, in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. We also have a new group of people. What are those new group of people?
Pharisees and Sadducees.
Okay, we've got different classifications. We have Pharisees, they're the separatists. They developed their group as a result of the Maccabean period, which would be some major revolts against the Greeks, who were world powers during that intertestamental period. You also have people who intermarried, who were left over from the northern kingdom, intermarried with people who weren't Jews. And so you've got a whole new group of people that live in the middle of the promised land. What are they named? Samaritans. You've got Samaritans, you've got Pharisees, you've got synagogues, you've got a lot of things that we don't read about in the Old Testament, but all of a sudden they're here in the New Testament. Okay, we got 5 minutes. Here's the New Testament. Pretty easy. First major period is the period of life of Christ. If you want to read about the life of Christ, there are 3 books that tell us about the life of Christ that are very, very similar. We're going to call them synoptics. Synoptics. What are they? Matthew, Mark, and Luke. A little bit later, John comes along because you've already got the other 3 Gospels. So John writes from a totally different perspective. John spends more than half of his Gospel in 1 week. In fact, he spends about a third of it on one night. He's not concerned to review a lot of the history we've already gotten from the Synoptic Gospels. So there's the life of Christ. When does the New Covenant begin? We call this the New Testament, the New Covenant, and appropriately so because all this builds up to it. But the New Covenant doesn't really start until, according to Hebrews chapter 9, a will doesn't go into effect until somebody dies. So it's the cross. So what are the major events? Okay, I'm out of order here. This is the period, right? This is the books that you're reading in. And the major events here would be the birth, ministry. Do you notice we skip him growing up? Got birth accounts. We have one event. How old was he? Was that one event? 12 years old. The rest of it's the ministry. And then we're going to call it the cross. Why? Because the Bible refers to the cross as death, burial, and resurrection, and the significance of that. Okay, those are the major events during the life of Christ. After that, you've got a 50-day period. 40 days Jesus is appearing to his followers, but then you've got the birth of the church. So we're going to call this the church age. And we're going to divide the church age into 2 ways. The first one's going to be the apostolic, the apostle age, and then the post-apostolic. What does that mean? Apostles aren't around anymore, right? So we're going to call it the post. The post-apostolic age. That's how we're dividing the church. If you want to read about the history of the church, what book do you go to? Go to the book of Acts. That's exactly right. book of Acts. Birth of the church, history of the church. Most of the letters are going to be written by which apostle? Paul. So almost all the letters you've got in the New Testament, they're going to be Paul's letters and not Paul's letters. So what we do is we call them Paul's letters or general letters, right? So what are the ones written by Paul? Let's start here in a little bit of order. We're going to start with the book of Romans. And if you wanted to read Romans light, or a short version of the book of Romans, where would you go? Yeah, I'm going to put Romans and Galatians next to each other because topically they're very much related. Romans is in more depth than the book of Galatians. There are 4 books that the Apostle Paul wrote while he was in prison. What are these prison letters? We're going to start with Ephesians, Philippians, and next to Philippians, I'm going to put Philemon so I don't forget it. And what's the other one? Colossians. Colossians. We're going to put these in prison as the prison letters. A couple of the, what was a church that was only around a couple of weeks and the Apostle Paul had to leave town? He was very concerned about it. Wrote him a series of 2 letters, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Then the most problematic church in the New Testament would be
1st and 2nd Corinthians.
2 letters to Corinth. 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Okay, and then towards the very end of Paul's ministry, he's trying to get ready for people when there's no longer apostles around. So now we have evangelists. So he writes to 2 different evangelists. What are their names?
Timothy.
1st and 2nd Timothy. And who's the other one? Titus. Titus, that's exactly right. Okay, general letters. The general letters. Again, the way they're arranged, they're not arranged time-wise in our Bible. You know how they're arranged? Biggest to smallest. That's why we start with the book of Romans. It's the biggest one that Paul wrote, right? So you go from the big letters down to the small ones. Same here. General letters, there's a book that we're not sure who wrote it. Who is that? Hebrews. That's the book of Hebrews. We got Hebrews, and then one of the brothers of Jesus, James. Hebrews, James. Then you've got the guy who cut somebody's ear off. Peter. We got 2 letters by Peter, 1st and 2nd Peter. Who's the apostle that Jesus loved?
John.
Yeah, so we got 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. He's also the author of the Gospel of John. And the other brother of Jesus wrote a letter in the New Testament. It'd be Jude. And then finally you've got, who wrote Revelation?
John again.
That's exactly right. We're supposed to have 27 books, so I leave any of them out. You ready to count? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
27.
27 plus 39 equals?
66.
There you go.
67.
And we have 10 seconds. Thank you for being with us tonight.